Hey guys, welcome to another video of my Homelab series. In the last few videos, we've done actually a few GitLab stuff, so we're going to continue on with that in this video. This one's going to be a little bit special because we're actually going to set up another server that's actually related to GitLab, but it's not a GitLab server. It's actually going to be a Gitlab Runner server. So, a little bit of a brief overview of how GitLab works in regards to like runners and whatnot. GitLab also supports CI/CD, which is essentially a actually I don't even know what it stands for. Now I'm gonna have to like actually Google it. It actually doesn't. Oh, continuous integration and continuous delivery, which essentially just gives the fact of like you being able to, deploy code, build code all in GitLab without having to like run it on your own personal machine, which is amazing because it's like, oh, hey, well, I'm going to just push this code and it'll just do everything that it needs to do. But to do that, you actually need runners, which is just another server that just does the work for you, right? You gotta also set it up how you want it to be done, but essentially it does everything that you need it to do. So, in this video, we're actually going to set up a GitLab runner and set up a job that is like a build job, but it doesn't do any actual building. But we're going to set it up as an example for you guys to kind of see. So hopefully you guys have some fun. And this video is also sponsored by me, myself, and I. So if you want to work with me, sponsor me for hardware or any other things, let me know. Send me an email in the description below. So without further ado, let's get started here. Okay, so I created another VM off of our template. And if you don't know how to create a VM template, go check out my other video in my Homelab series. That's like, I think, the second video that we created. So we will quickly go through the process of setting this up. So we will set another IP, sysconfig network scripts. And in this case, our next IP we'll use is 1.133. Set the host name, Gitlab Runner, and restart that. So, since we now have that set up, let's also add it to our DNS real quick. Run AD data, dragon.local. So remember, you gotta update the serial. In this case, we're just gonna do one up, and then we'll add GitLab Runner in AN133. Save that on DC reload. All right. So now we should actually, from here, be able to SSH to our GitLab Runner. Okay. So with GitLab Runners, there's actually a few ways you can actually set up a GitLab Runner. You go through the doc, you pretty much just can, there's a lot of ways to do this. How we're going to do it is we're going to actually go down the Docker route. Okay, so we'll essentially set up a Docker runner. The reason why I'm doing this, as opposed to just installing the runner straight onto the machine, is because when you do it via HTTP instead of HTTPS, there's some like search stuff that's a pain to like actually get set up. Or at least historically, when I like did like GitLab 15, GitLab 16 may be better, but it's actually a lot easier to do it via Docker. So we're going to actually go through the Docker install of this, and we will get it to work. So the first thing, if you don't know, is we need to actually install Docker. There's a lot of good documentation out here. Oh, I don't actually want Docker desktop. I just want to install Docker on the machine. So install Docker CentOS 8. Linux Techie, this is usually a pretty good one. Okay, so Docker isn't really that hard to install. You just do the same thing that you would do with GitLab, and oh my god, so many ads on this page. you essentially do the same thing with GitLab. You would just get the repository and then install Docker. So in this case, we'll use the config manager command, and DNF is like the same as like yum, so it doesn't matter which one you use. So we'll just use yum config manager, add the repo, and download docker.com, Linux, CentOS, Docker CE repo. CE stands for Community Edition. So that's why when we did GitLab, we actually downloaded the enterprise version, but really it doesn't make a difference because they're practically the exact same thing. Now we'll install Docker CE. Give it a minute here. Please has to download all the things from the repo. Alright, there it goes. Not that many things successfully downloaded, running, installing. Okay, so that's essentially all that is to Docker. So it's actually not that crazy. So there's a few options that you can use to install Docker. We're just going to use option 1, where we use the local file system mounts to run the Docker container. There's a lot of other ways there's another way you can do it, but we won't have to worry about it. You don't have to really sweat it, honestly. So we're just going to go through the first route. So essentially we have this command that will, as we go, run the Docker container, name it Gitlab Runner. It will mount this directory to this in the container and mount this file to this file in the container, and then try to pull the GitLab Docker image. So now that that's installed, we need to start Docker. And we'll actually also enable Docker. So if the machine ever reboots, we can enable it. You can tell that it's actually started. So by doing a PS, so this lists all the Docker processes that are there. -A is for all. So you can see there's currently nothing running. So what we're going to do is copy this, paste it. Oh, copy, paste. There we go. So usually if it can't find the image, it will try to go out to the internet and grab the image. So this image is actually hosted by GitLab, so it's going to go to GitLab, download the GitLab runner. In most cases, images, whenever you build like a Docker image, the idea with Docker is you want to build the image as small as possible, because that makes it the easiest. So like you can see that was like half a gig, which downloaded pretty quickly. So now we can see that there is an actual image running here that is named Gitlab Runner. So you have now installed and set up a Gitlab Runner, which is super easy. Docker's amazing. I love Docker because of stuff like this. That way you don't have to really think about some of the stuff. Now the next part is we need to register the runner, right? We only spun it up, but we didn't register it, so it doesn't know how to communicate back to our GitLab service. So to do that, we'll actually run this command right here from the GitLab site, and copy again, which will essentially run the register command in the container, and then figure out what's all needed. So in this case, we'll do our DNS thing. So and note it's HTTP, not HTTPS. The registration token you can actually find in your GitLab. So in here, we go to the admin area. You go to runners, and under here there's a registration token. I'll show you guys this because it doesn't really make a difference in my case. But if this was like a public GitLab server, it makes a lot more sense to never ever show this, because otherwise someone can register a GitLab runner in your thing, and you could do malicious stuff with it. But in this case, this is a throwaway server anyway, so I'm not too worried. So damn, I really can't copy into this terminal. There we go. So that's the registration check-in. Now you can enter the description for the runner. In this case, I don't really have a description. It makes more sense when you do tag deployments where you have a like build server that does build specifically, where you have specific packages that are required for a build, but like your deploy server maybe just only needs, you know, SCP, so you actually use 2 different servers to do deployments and builds, and then you want to separate it out. In that case, you want to do, you know, a better description instead of, you know, the hash, so you do like build server 1 or something, right? In this case, I don't have any really big preferences. This server can just run all of it, and as far as we're concerned in this video. So same thing with tags. You can tag it, as I was saying, so that only specific tag jobs will run on the server. For example, you could do a build tag, or you can do a deploy tag. In this case, we're just going to let all, so we're going to keep it all. We don't have any optional maintenance notes, and that is okay. So, oh, okay. I also put in the wrong Gitlab.dragon.local. Sorry. Asgard.local is my home domain. I actually use Asgard because I like the, you know, whole like mythology stuff. So put in the wrong GitLab host. So that's why that errored. Alright. And we're gonna copy that. Same thing. Okay. So now it should run. So now that it's registered, now you have kind of a few executors that you can pick in regards to how you want, you know, the GitLab runner to actually run. In this case, we're just going to do Docker. There's a lot of other options here that you can explore, but in this case, we only wanted to act like a Docker thing. Also, what we want as our default image, so by default, it'll run Ruby 2.7. My preference is just a basic Linux system. So in this case, we'll actually pull the CentOS 8 image and use that as the runner. So now you can see that we have a registered runner. Woo! Now, what can you do with runners and how do you utilize them, right? That's the hard part. So we're going to create a new project. We'll name it Test My Runner. Put it in namespace and another slice. README. Okay. So we will actually just edit in here. We won't have to deal. We won't do like push and pull stuff, but we'll just edit directly in the web IDE. So with runners, essentially, if you have a GitlabCI.yaml file, this file essentially says, "Hey, this is how I want my pipelines to run," right? And from here, you essentially just configure it. So default settings, we're actually gonna set the image to be the CentOS 8 image, as we've had in. So if you don't set an image, it will just default use what the runner was set to, which was CentOS 8. But in this case, I'm going to explicitly put CentOS 8 because later we'll actually use different default images for different things, right? Okay, now I think people are done cutting wood. So I didn't want to hear the whole saw sound as I was trying to talk. But we'll probably just cut that out in the video. But if I don't, you'll just see me just listening to a saw going off for like 30 seconds. Anywho, now we have the default image. Next thing that we want to do, and the GitLab CI is actually very flexible. There's a lot of configurations you can do, different ways of how you want to do things. But we're going to keep it short and simple. But it is definitely a lot more configurable than what I am showing. So like if you have something more complex, it may or may not be able to do it. If you have like questions in regards to, hey, you know, I have like this kind of like pipeline, and I have this idea for like this pipeline. How should I go about it? Let me know in the comments. But essentially, we will have stages. In this case, stages. Gotta type it in right. If I don't, it's not gonna work. So in this case, we'll have like a build stage and a deploy stage. You can have as many stages as you want. You can have a few stages. Usually, in my opinion, you would separate the stages to be really in regards to order of operations, right? So like you want something to be built, and you want something to be deployed, right? But you don't want the thing to be deployed before it's actually built, right? Because then it doesn't make any sense. So like you would separate those stages, do the build first, then do the deploy. So especially if you have things that are dependent on the other one, that's kind of like how you would separate the stages. Okay, so now that we have the stages, we can come up with the job, right? So this is just a header for each job, right? There's nothing, you can name this anything as far as I'm concerned, but we're just gonna use this as an example. We'll set the stage to be build. So in other words, you can do like multiple build jobs, right? And maybe we'll actually do that here, where the stage will also be build, right? So we can have as many stages, as many jobs as you want in the same stage. It doesn't need to be only one. And in this case, we're just gonna keep it simple. We're just gonna do a script, which essentially it just runs commands on the server. So like, for example, check these files I need to build, something like that. And then do an ls where it'll just display the files. And in like this case, we can do like echo, this is the second build job, woo. And in this case, we can make a file too. But the thing is, if you make a file in here, it won't actually be part of the repo. So like, this is great if you're like, hey, I need to like create a manifest or something, right? Touch manifest. And it just gathers information like, hey, I want to echo like the date in the manifest, right? Actually, now the date, yeah. So in this case, we can see here where it will, we can do an ls, which will list the directory, and then we can cat the manifest in the second build job. And that's essentially how you do the build jobs. And the same thing with deploy, but you just do different steps. So let's actually add like a test file here too. Okay, so now that we have this all created, what we'll want to do is commit this to main. Yep, we'll just commit it to default branch, totally fine in this case. So we'll go back to the project. Oh God, I don't actually know how to get back to the project from here, actually. Oh, they changed, the GUI looks so different that I actually don't know how. Okay, we're just gonna go back to the tab. Usually it would be like right here, like you click the project, but they changed it. Okay, so now that you have created a GitLab CI, by default, GitLab will pick it up and be like, oh man, I need to do some work, right? So you can see here where it actually shows a green check mark here. It means that it actually went through the pipelines. The other way to see actually pipelines, there's plans. Oh, interesting. There's actually a lot more in here. Well, it's formatted differently than what I'm used to, because this is a new one. So actually, it would be CI/CD before, but now it's build, which is actually kind of funny. So we go to pipelines. You can actually click on this past part, and you can see all the jobs, right? So in this case, we got the build code job that we named. So you can see how it echoes out and does an ls, and that's where the test file is. Then we have the build code 2 job, where we have it creates the manifest. You can see that the manifest was actually created, and then it shows the date in the manifest, right? But you can see that there is no manifest file in here anymore. I mean, that is only created part of the build and not actually part of the repo. So the GitLab Runner actually downloads the repo and then does what it needs to do based off of what you create in here, which is really neat because you can do a lot of things, because literally the only thing stopping you here is essentially like your Linux skills, or how you can connect things together. Because once you kind of get to a point where you automate how you build and deploy, you can just let GitLab do it all. You just go, hey, I just need to run these commands, and boom, you're golden. So that is pretty much it for this video. So in this video, we showed you how to install a GitLab Runner for your GitLab instance, as well as going through the GitLab CI to show you how to build and deploy code. So hopefully you guys found this a little bit entertaining, a little bit fun. I know there was some sighing noise, so I was like, oh man, that would be interesting in the video, but we're probably not going to put that in. But if you did like the video, please leave a like, comment, or subscribe, and we'll see you guys all in the next video. Thanks, guys.